And if you're good with a hammer, you can do it yourself.
You can't get anything.
Yeah, the hammer drills. Yeah.
You know what his nickname is, don't you? Thor?
Oh,
No, but
they actually have a tool that is it hammers. They put it on there and it goes right in.
But to your point, Dan, exactly what you said. I remember you said it 5 years ago when it was the first event. And when we moved into our house in downtown Phoenix, we know for the punch list when you buy a house, our place is built in the mid-'60s. It still had the old outlets on it, the two-prong.
Oh yeah. Ooh.
So I told them, I said, we're not closing until I see grounds on all those outlets. And forget about the stereo, it's safety, right?
Oh yeah.
Right? But as soon as we moved in and I hooked up all my crap, my wife and I sit down to watch a movie. Every time the subs went off, the lights are dancing, and my wife's looking at me, you gotta fix this. So I went over to French's Electric on Glendale, and the dude's like, buy the conduit. I think it was like 50 feet that I needed from the breaker panel out to my living room. I did exactly like you said. Ran the conduit, ran the flexible conduit. 3 conductors inside, so I got hot, neutral, and ground all insulated. So I'm grounded.
So you made a home run to your outlet.
Correct.
That's good to do.
Correct. And it's psychedelic spaghetti in my garage, because in the living room it looks nice and clean, but it's psychedelic spaghetti. There's no hum, there's no hiss, there's no nothing. People are
Takes
freaked
care
out
of a
when
lot
they
of
come
stuff.
over.
Yeah.
You know, and people are freaked out. Like, how do you have no noise in your setup? I said, because I ran the power properly. That's all.
In Japan, anybody follows whatever, they contact the electrical company, and the wires are above ground, and they change out all the transformers and everything on the poles.
Yeah. Yeah, we make these at 200 volts for the Japanese market. They have 100 volts at 50 hertz.
Right.
You can't imagine how inefficient that is. And no ground. There's no reference to ground on there. There's no third prong.
Wow.
And each side of the cable is balanced. So you can't. There's no reference to ground on it. It's just 100 volts, perfectly balanced from each side.
Wow.
It's weird.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, any all-time favorite speakers? Top 3?
Well, I think one of my favorite speakers in my life was probably the Apogee Grands.
The brand, the one with the woofers?
No, the original Apogee.
The full range.
The full range. Really loved that speaker. Probably some of the Wilson stuff. The early stuff was really good. The new stuff is fabulous.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think there's quite a few speakers on the market that are a lot of fun.
The full range, the Apogee full range, there's a reincarnation of that.
Yeah, people are making
Clarises.
yeah. Those are. I haven't heard them. People tell me they sound really good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Better materials.
Yeah, better magnets.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for being.
Any other questions?
Probably
Fuses.
Yeah, fusing.
These are power supply fuses. So if the power supply shorts out, it blows a fuse instead of catching on fire. That's why they're there. The whole system operates off this breaker. I have this breaker made by Air Packs, and you notice there's 2 extra wires of power wire, and then these 2 little wires here. They're wired into this board here, and this board's monitoring everything this amplifier does. Heat, DC offset, current draw, and if it sees anything that it doesn't like, it shuts its breaker up.
And to have everybody else experience this, it's really nice. I don't get to go to all the shows. So this is
And the way we have this made, if it loses power, this breaker goes off. So you have no possibility of plugging it in and just having a power surge. It will never let you do that. It's a circuit breaker. Circuit breaker.
Yeah. Oh,
Huh?
kind of small for that.
Well, it's
Carry that?
it's 50 amps at 240 volts. And it's a very, I mean, you can go buy a breaker like that at Home Depot or at Lowe's, and it'll cost you about $25, and this costs $150.
Why is that?
Because it's super fast and there's no leakage current. So when you turn it on, do you ever flip your breaker and hear it hum, buzz? This doesn't do that. This is a real breaker, the way they're supposed to be made. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a good thing
I don't
got
have
the
any
mic covered
fuses
up.
in my circuit, so I never have an opportunity to listen to them.
Thanks, man.
You know what? They probably have less resistance on the end caps so that their rated current is delivered. I mean, if you look at the metal on fuses, usually steel, really terrible conductor. You know, they probably put copper or some kind of good conducting metal on the end caps, which would make your fuse contact better. So your fuse value, it's not. No, no, I'm not a big proponent of that. Yeah. You know, this wire is made for us. This wire in here is 1,200 strands. It's number 10 gauge with a special insulation, and it's it's silver coated copper, but it's pure copper, and it's the thing about this wire is it's super fine. I mean, it's like hair fine, and the advantage of that for short runs is really good current delivery. It's terrible for long runs, yeah, but for short runs like this, it's excellent.
No, it's not that. I swear a lot on my channel, so it's all good.
Yeah, it's flexible too.
No, I'm from Southern Ontario. Originally born and brought up. Just southwest.
Where do you plug your input in? Does this just come off from here?
That's the
I mean, your
input.
output.
These are the outputs. Yeah.
Just pull out. Just,
No, they turn.
Hated it when I was a kid. Moved here, don't have to shovel anymore.
So
It's an experience just being able to
thank you.
privilege, I should say.
Yeah.
Being able to see this. We love it. How do you like electrostatic speakers?
I like them a lot. I used to work for an electrostatic company back in the 70s.
Which company?
A company called Dayton Wright.
Really?
Yeah.
Can I share a fun little fact?
Sure.
So, I'm originally an automotive engineer. I worked for GM for 25 years. Then I got tired of cold weather and I moved here just for the weather. It so happened that thanks to the cold weather, you're always into audio to keep you motivated.
Yeah.
That's how I got into it.
Yeah.
So I'm totally into full range electrostatics.
Yeah, they're
Sound
very nice.
labs,
Yeah.
the big ones.
Yeah, sound labs are good. I like
So it so happened that I got the opportunity to become a distributor for final electrostatic speakers from Netherlands.
that. I know that speaker.
We have just launched the full range electrostat that goes down to 20 hertz.
Did he? What was the guy's name that started their company?
Martin Spitz
Yeah. Yeah.
from Netherlands.
Yeah.
They started as Final Sound. Philips took over.
Yeah.
Then Philips ran it to the ground, poor decisions, and they restarted it as Final Audio. And I was their customer 20 years ago, and I
So-
had the opportunity.
So we made electrostats that had 25,000 volts on the stators, and the bias voltage was 10,000, and they were cleared uninsulated electrodes, and they're quarter-inch gap spacing, and the whole interior of the speaker was filled with a gas called sulfur hexafluoride. And the speakers played really loud. You could play 115, 118 dBs with them.
Wow.
You're talking about data,
With an
right?
electrostat.
Yeah.
So they actually have a gas in between the stator
There's a
and the
gas,
diaphragm?
there's two membranes on either side, and inside the cabinet is filled with a gas called sulfur hexafluoride, and it's 5 times heavier than air, and it's used as a high voltage suppressor in high voltage switches. Like when you make a neon, the switch for a neon thing has got sulfur hexafluoride in it, so it doesn't arc.
Prevent arcing.
Yeah, because it actually will put out a fire. You could put out a fire with it.
Wow. How interesting.
Yeah, and it's an interesting gas. It's 5 times heavier than air. So when you fill it into a box, this thing was 1 meter by 1 meter, and when you filled it with gas, because of the weight of the gas, the actual diaphragms became Helmholtz resonators because they operated as a piston as opposed to a membrane.
Sure.
So it was like the distance. You could hear high frequencies through the diaphragm. You would never believe the diaphragm was there. It was pretty interesting. But they could play really loud. They were made with cells, 10 cells about that big, and the actual coating on the inner diaphragm was a product made by DuPont that we used to silk screen on, and it was to give you an idea of the voltage, the resistance on the material was 1 megohm per square inch. So if you took a square inch and measured here to here, it'd be 1 megohm. So
It's a lot of resistance.
yeah. So that means that the charge buildup, time constant of charge was really high. So when you played the product, the refresh time of the power supply was a long periodicity, so it held the charge. So they had a lot of science in it. That the company didn't do well because it was really hard to ship the speakers. They were 1 meter by 1 meter by like 10 inches thick.
But trying to keep that.
Well, keep the gas in
insulated
the thing,
layer
because
in
people
the
used to
cavity.
ship them on planes, and it would rip the diaphragm.
Yeah.
But nowadays, the material out there and the glue, you would never have to worry about that. Wouldn't do it. But it had a huge power supply that was about half as big as this amplifier, matching transformers like this. Yeah, it was very hard to drive. At 5K, it was half an ohm at 90 degree phase shift.
Wow.
Amplifier killer.
Did you like it sonically?
Sonically, it was a thrill. You never heard a mid-range like that, ever.
So tell me, why do you use so many hard connectors instead of just solder them into place?
It's easier to build.
Well, I got that part, but
Yeah, and soldering.
you're not really expecting to tear it back apart.
No, but AC connections like this, they're not that important. They're not coming off. I mean, you can't take these off. Yeah, and that way we can switch the voltage with these switches. That's why primaries. They're just
I was wondering why you had this.
Yeah, they're just
That's
primaries.
just a voltage selector.
So I don't have to take wires off and soldering them to that board. It'd be an appendage to that transformer. That transformer weighs 80 pounds.
I mean, just having to solder like rectifiers and some of this stuff, a board that you can actually solder to, it's a lot of work. I mean, you get tiny. I don't know how you can see this stuff. I
Yeah.
mean,
These components, the solder we use, the soldering irons we use, it's all mil spec. Yeah.
I just hate these kind of connectors myself. I just don't like the mechanical.
I don't love them. I have to tell you, I'm not
That's why
going
I
to
asked.
disagree with you. They're not my favorite things in the world, but they're good for AC.
Yeah.
and, you know,
I try not to use them in audio.
but you know, in everything there's, you know, efficiency and compromise. And, you know, how everything,
Yeah.
you know, everything is trade-offs.
Yep. But there's very little trade-off here.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not. Yeah. I mean, there's very much.
This is our all-new full-range electrostatic.
Nice.
Down to 25 hertz.
Wow.
In-room response is actually below 20.
So how loud will they play? How loud will they play?
Really loud.
1 meter, how loud?
The efficiency is 88 dB, and I have seen dB levels up to 105, 110. It has built-in protection mechanism.
Yeah,
so it
that's
automatically
that's
shut off.
pretty loud for a
What are
for
the
an
ribbons?
open air electrostat.
So this is a brand new Electrostatic. We just launched.
Yeah, I
it.
listened to him there. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
John was there.
They're yeah, that's pretty loud for an open air electrostat.
And what's unique is it has segmented radiation.
So you have these are panels.
So within the panel, you have segments producing different frequencies. So we can have high, ultra high frequencies, mid-range, coming from different segments.
You said 25 it goes down to?
25 hertz.
That's pretty
So
amazing.
some of your panels have closer gap
Yes.
and higher resistance in the stator.
And the goal is to reduce the capacitance load that the amplifier sees,
Yep.
so you get better high frequencies.
And so your diaphragms are really close on the high frequencies and really far on the low.
What do they go for?
I'll give you all the details. It's we have just launched the product, and amplifiers like
If I recall,
Class A
you're
amplifier.
down in Awatuki.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
How
I remember talking with you that you had them down there.
how big are your matching transformers?
In terms of capacity,
Size.
they're very compact. The entire electronics are in the back,
Yeah.
back of the speaker, in a square box, attached to the speaker.
Yeah, they're about 6, 7 feet tall, or how tall are they?
They're exactly
About that tall. Well, maybe that tall.
It'd be interesting to hear them sometime.
Yeah,
Current square times resistance gives you power. It's just Ohm's law. And if you've ever seen the circle, that's the only thing. So the only thing that truly shows what an amp is capable of is its power measurement. Damping factor is just a nonsensical thing that you can just manipulate.
But you couldn't make a solid state amplifier, no matter how poorly it's done, with a damping factor less than 50. You couldn't do it. And at 50 is way more than adequate for any speaker. You couldn't make one. Wouldn't be
Now
possible.
the fun one we see is that there's some amps that have adjustable damping factor. Now, well,
Oh, yeah.
undoubtedly the top is the best, right? So you're only turning it down. Why? You would never want to go less, right? So why are you putting in control?
Because my
You want it to be the best you can have it, right? That's the point.
So and how are you adjusting it?
exactly.
What part are you adjusting? So it could be a resistor in series with the output. That's the only way you're going to change that. Or to reduce the feedback, and if you have a global feedback, you can do it that way, which is again deleterious to the amplifier's operating.
You play tone control games with.
An amp's not a tone control. Do a tone control in the front, not in the back.
See? That's why he's who he
It's
is.
just basically
That's exactly why he's who he
Yeah,
is.
you can't do that. And plus, I mean, if somebody came over here and I make this amplifier, it sells for over $300,000, and I sold it to him, and I gave him adjustments for that. That means to me, if I'm an engineer, so I would look at that and say, well, you're not sure how it works? I mean, if you were designing an amplifier that big, or any of the amplifiers I make, you'd want it to be its best, maximum, best performance. And I mean, believe me, in engineering, we sweat over those little details to make sure we get everything we can possibly get out of it. And then I'm going to let you take it home and turn a knob and destroy that? Come on.
I mean, the only accessory we usually have is an on-off switch, and that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's like
Turn the meters off too.
that's like
display
that's
can
like
turn off, but yeah.
taking a Ferrari and having a spark advance on the steering wheel. Sport mode. Yep.
That's what my Mini has, okay?
What Mini do you have? A Countryman? Me too.
Oh, do you?
I have one. I have a John Cooper Mini.
That's our vehicle to haul stuff.
Yeah.
I do. I should post.
My wife's taking it over now. She's got her saddles in the back of it. And
There you go.
everything.
It carries everything.
Right.
All right, Joe, I think that's what we got for you tonight.
No, man, Dan, this is awesome, man. You're like an awesome. You got both of you guys are amazing hosts, and big, huge thank you to Ray for kind of taken over for me.
Oh, yeah.
I have no argument whatsoever. It's like really, really awesome.
Glad to do it.
What?
Glad you chose that as well.
It's been great. Yeah, yeah, we like
Come
it.
on, Dan.
Finally, the weather is starting to cooperate a
In,
little
in
bit.
my Ferrari,
Now,
on my 488, I haven't bought seats
Well,
for
I've been
this,
with Dan
but
since
you could
2015
go
out
over
here, so I've been
to
back and forth, but I'm finally
AutoZone,
settled.
well, now,
and they had a
hopefully from now forward,
black with a red trim seat cover, which is the same as my seats, and I put it on both seats.
I love to play
and my German Shepherd Heidi got in there, and I drove her to the Ferrari
it's a
dealer,
dry heat,
and I
yeah.
opened the door, and they're looking in, thinking she's on the regular leather seats, and she gets out, and I put the leash on her, and she's pretty big, and we walked into the dealership.
September had maybe
I've
one
never
good
seen a
weekend,
dog in a
and
Ferrari
now it's
before.
finally-
I have a white Great Pyrenees.
Yeah, it's amazing how different it is this week versus even last.
He said,
Really started.
You know,
put a moving
I'm
blanket
gonna
on
get
so
to
you
the
can
point
ride
where
in my
people
car
come
one
back and
time.
say,
She
so,
said,
oh, what's the temperature? Like, what are you gonna
I
go?
said, no, he's not
So if you want to see, go to the Weather Channel. You can check it
My
out.
whole family's still Becky, so yeah, that's conversation.
I love
When I tell
dogs.
them
So.
105 is it's fine. 105
My,
is fine. 110.
When I had a Porsche Turbo S,
105
and when I had that, I had a big male and a female German Shepherd, and I used to put them in the back of the car, in the back seats when I drove from my house. It's about 5 minutes away. But when I got out of the car, if I had to do something, they would get out and they'd jump over the seat, and the male would sit in the driver's seat, and the female would sit next to him, and you'd look at them.